The Saturday afternoon sun blazed through the stained glass windows of St. Augustine's Cathedral in Charleston, South Carolina, casting kaleidoscope patterns across the polished marble floor. 300 guests filled the pews, dressed in their finest, waiting for the ceremony to begin. At the front, my brother Marcus stood in his custom Italian tuxedo, radiating confidence and success, everything our parents had always hoped for in a son. And then there was me, Alex Carter, 32 years old, standing awkwardly to the side in an ill-fitting rental tux that Marcus had insisted I wear instead of buying my own. "No point wasting money when you'll never need to wear it again," he'd said with that condescending smile I'd grown to despise. I should have known better than to accept his invitation to be best man. Our relationship had always been complicated. Marcus, the golden child with his law degree from Yale and partnership at Charleston's most prestigious firm. Me, the disappointment, as our father liked to call me during his more generous moments. The one who dropped out of college to pursue foolish dreams of becoming a marine biologist, who lived in a modest apartment instead of Marcus's waterfront mansion, who drove a 10-year-old Honda instead of a BMW. But when Marcus called 6 months ago, asking me to be his best man, I'd stupidly thought maybe, finally, we could rebuild our fractured relationship. Maybe he actually wanted me there. Maybe family meant something after all. I was wrong. The ceremony itself went smoothly enough. Marcus married Vanessa, a corporate attorney from an old Charleston family, with money that made even our upper-middle-class upbringing look modest. They were perfect together, both beautiful, successful, utterly convinced of their own superiority. It was during the reception, after too many champagne toasts and the requisite speeches, that everything fell apart. Marcus grabbed the microphone for what I thought would be a standard thank you speech. Instead, he turned toward me with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I want to take a moment to acknowledge my little brother, Alex," he began, and my stomach immediately knotted. "Alex is here today as my best man, which is generous of him considering." Nervous laughter rippled through the crowd. I felt heat rising to my face. "You see, Alex has always been, let's say, finding himself. While I was in law school, he was finding himself in community college. While I was building my career, he was finding himself working odd jobs. And now, at 32, he's still finding himself, living alone, struggling to make ends meet." The laughter was louder now. More uncomfortable. I saw pity in some faces, amusement in others. "But you know what?" Marcus continued, voice dripping with false warmth. "That's okay. Not everyone is cut out for success. Not everyone has what it takes to be a real man, to build a career, provide for a family, make something of themselves. Some people are just content to drift, and that's fine. The world needs people at every level, right?" My hands were trembling. 300 pairs of eyes watched me, waiting for my reaction. So let's raise a glass to Alex, my eternally adolescent little brother who's still figuring out what he wants to be when he grows up. May you someday, maybe, hopefully, find whatever it is you're looking for. The toast was met with scattered, awkward applause. I stood frozen, humiliation washing over me in waves. This wasn't brotherly teasing. This was calculated cruelty, delivered in front of everyone I knew, everyone our family knew, everyone who mattered in Charleston society. Marcus returned to his table, satisfied smirk firmly in place. Vanessa whispered something in his ear, and they both laughed. Our mother avoided my eyes. Our father shook his head with that familiar look of disappointment. I wanted to leave, wanted to walk out and never look back. But my feet wouldn't move. Years of conditioning, of being told I wasn't enough, wasn't trying hard enough, wasn't man enough, held me paralyzed. And then, as I stood there drowning in shame, the cathedral doors burst open. The sound echoed through the reception hall, silencing the murmured conversations. Every head turned toward the entrance, and there she was. Dr. Sarah Mitchell walked into that cathedral like she owned it, which in a way she did. She owned every room she entered. At 5'10" in heels, with dark hair pulled back in an elegant chignon and wearing a navy dress that probably cost more than my car, she commanded attention. But it wasn't just her appearance. It was the confidence, the authority, the unmistakable aura of someone who had earned every ounce of respect she demanded. My wife. We'd been married for 3 years, but she'd been overseas for the past 6 months, leading a critical oceanic research expedition. The same expedition I'd helped design before she got the grant and the glory. I hadn't told anyone in my family she was coming back early. Hadn't told them much about her at all, actually. After years of their dismissal and mockery, I'd learned to keep the most important parts of my life private. Sarah's eyes found mine across the crowded room, and I saw the storm brewing behind her calm exterior. She'd clearly heard Marcus's speech, or at least the tail end of it. She walked toward me with purposeful strides, heels clicking against marble. The crowd parted automatically. There was something about Sarah that made people move. Maybe it was the 2 PhDs, maybe it was the MacArthur Fellowship, maybe it was just the force of her personality. "Alex," she said, voice carrying clearly in the hushed room. She kissed my cheek and took my hand, fingers intertwining with mine. Then she turned to face the 300 guests who were staring in confusion. "I'm sorry for the dramatic entrance," she said, not sounding sorry at all. "I just flew in from the Mariana Trench Research Station and came straight here. But I'm glad I made it in time to hear such a interesting toast." Marcus had gone pale. Recognition was dawning. He'd seen Sarah's picture once, years ago, but had dismissed her as some girl Alex was seeing. He clearly hadn't kept up with her career trajectory. "You must be Marcus," Sarah said, her smile sharp as a scalpel. "The lawyer. How nice. Alex has told me so much about you." The way she said lawyer made it sound like a consolation prize. "And you are?" Marcus asked, trying to recover his composure, though I could see the uncertainty in his eyes. "Dr. Sarah Mitchell, Alex's wife, though I still publish under my maiden name, easier for citation consistency, you understand." She said it casually, but I caught the emphasis on doctor. "Wife?" Our mother's voice cracked across the room. "Alex, you're married?" 3 years this August, Sarah confirmed before I could answer. "Beautiful ceremony in the Florida Keys. Small, intimate, just close friends and colleagues. We would have invited family, but—" She let the sentence hang, the implication clear. Marcus was studying Sarah with new eyes, and I could practically see him trying to reconcile this accomplished, confident woman with his mental image of his failure brother's life. "Dr. Mitchell," Marcus said carefully, "I'm not familiar with your work." "That's understandable," Sarah replied smoothly. "Marine biogeochemistry is a fairly specialized field. Though we did get quite a bit of press last year when our team discovered those extremophile colonies that could revolutionize our understanding of life's origins. Made the cover of Nature, which was exciting." She said it so matter-of-factly, like she hadn't just name-dropped one of the most prestigious scientific journals in the world. "Sarah leads the Deep Sea Research Division at the Oceanographic Institute," I added quietly, finding my voice. "She just got back from 6 months studying hydrothermal vents at depths that would crush a submarine. With a research grant of $45 million, Sarah added, still smiling that dangerous smile. "Though I suppose that's not as impressive as—" "What did you say you do, Marcus?" "Oh yes, corporate law. How practical." The room had gone completely silent. The power dynamic had shifted so dramatically that you could feel it in the air. "But I'm not here to talk about my work," Sarah continued, voice sweetening. "I'm here because I heard someone question whether my husband is a real man, and I thought, what an interesting question. Let's explore that. Sarah, I started, but she squeezed my hand. You see, Marcus, when you talk about being a real man, I assume you mean someone successful, someone who's made something of themselves, someone who provides, someone who makes a difference. Marcus nodded warily. Well, let me tell you about Alex, about the real Alex, not the caricature you've apparently constructed. Sarah's voice grew stronger, more passionate. Alex has 3 research papers published in peer-reviewed journals, papers that I cite in my own work because they're brilliant. He designed the filtration system we're using in the Mariana Trench that's allowing us to collect samples from depths we could never access before. He's consulted on projects for Norway, the Navy, and 2 different universities. She paused, letting that sink in. I saw our father's expression shifting from confusion to something else, something that might have been recognition. But maybe that's not manly enough, Sarah continued. Maybe you need to know about money. Alex turned down a 6-figure salary with a defense contractor because he didn't believe in the project. He chose principle over profit. He works at the Marine Education Center teaching kids about ocean conservation because he believes education matters more than a corner office. That's... Marcus tried to interrupt, but Sarah wasn't done. Or maybe being a man means supporting your partner, in which case, let me tell you about the year I was working 80-hour weeks, finishing my 2nd doctorate. Alex worked 2 jobs so I could focus on research. He cooked every meal, handled every household task, never once complained. He celebrated every one of my successes like it was his own. He's secure enough in himself that my achievements don't threaten him. I felt tears stinging my eyes. Sarah was describing a version of me I'd never seen, a version that actually had value. Or maybe, Sarah said, voice dropping to something more dangerous, maybe being a man means having the courage to live your own life instead of the life someone else scripted for you. Maybe it means choosing passion over prestige. Maybe it means being kind instead of cruel. Maybe it means building people up instead of tearing them down in front of 300 people. She turned to look at Marcus directly, and he actually flinched. My husband is twice the man you'll ever be, Marcus. Not because of his job or his income or his zip code, but because he has integrity, compassion, intelligence, courage. Because when I was struggling with imposter syndrome in my field, he's the one who reminded me of my worth. Because he loves fully and gives freely and never demands that the world recognize him for it. The silence was deafening. So, thank you for that toast, Sarah concluded. It was very illuminating. It showed everyone here exactly what kind of man you are and what kind of man Alex is. She turned back to me, her expression softening. I'm sorry I've been away so long. I missed you. And then, in front of 300 people, my brilliant, fierce, incredible wife kissed me. Not a peck, but a real kiss that said everything her words hadn't. When we broke apart, the room erupted. Not in applause exactly, but in murmurs, gasps, a few suppressed laughs. The social order had been completely upended. Marcus stood frozen, face red, trapped between anger and humiliation. Vanessa was whispering urgently in his ear, and I caught enough to know she was damage controlling. The Mitchells were well known in academic circles, and Sarah had just made Marcus look foolish in front of Charleston society. Our mother hurried over, tears in her eyes. Alex, why didn't you tell us? Why didn't you say you'd married someone so accomplished? Would it have mattered? I asked quietly. Would you have treated me differently? She had no answer to that. Our father approached more slowly, studying Sarah with new respect. Dr. Mitchell, I owe you an apology. I owe my son an apology. Yes, Sarah agreed simply. You do. The rest of the reception passed in a blur. People who'd ignored me all evening suddenly wanted to talk, to congratulate me, to ask about my work. It was surreal and uncomfortable and validating all at once, but the best moment came later. as Sarah and I were leaving. Marcus caught up with us in the parking lot, alone, the facade finally cracking. "You could have told me," he said, not quite an apology but close. "Would you have listened?" I asked. "Or would you have found another way to dismiss it? Another way to make yourself feel superior?" He had no answer. "I love you, Marcus. You're my brother. But I don't need your approval anymore. I don't need Dad's disappointment or Mum's pity. I have a life I'm proud of, a marriage I treasure. Work that matters to me. I just—" He started, then stopped. "I thought I was motivating you." "No," I said firmly. "You were tearing me down to build yourself up. There's a difference." Sarah squeezed my hand. "We should go. Early flight tomorrow. I have to present our findings to the National Science Foundation Board." As we drove away, I looked back at the cathedral, at my brother standing alone in his expensive tuxedo, and felt something release in my chest. Not quite forgiveness, that would take time, but freedom. "Thank you," I said to Sarah, "for coming, for standing up for me, for being you." "Thank you for being you," she replied. "The you that I fell in love with, the you that's enough, exactly as you are." And for the first time in my life, I actually believed it. Chapter 2. The Truth Comes Out. The days following Marcus's wedding rippled through our family like an earthquake, with aftershocks that kept coming. The first came Monday morning when our father called, asking if we could meet for breakfast, not demanding, asking. That alone was unprecedented. Sarah and I met him at a small diner near the harbour, far from his usual haunts in Charleston's business district. He looked smaller somehow, older than I remembered. The confidence that usually armoured him seemed diminished. "Dr. Mitchell," he began formally, then stopped himself. "Sarah, thank you for meeting me." "Mr. Carter," Sarah responded, equally formal. She wasn't going to make this easy for him, and I loved her for it. "I spent yesterday doing something I should have done years ago," he said, pulling out his iPad. "I looked up your work, Alex. Both of your work." He showed us the screen, pages of research papers, articles, citations, my published work on deep-sea filtration systems, Sarah's groundbreaking research on extremophile ecosystems, the joint project we'd worked on studying microplastic distribution in ocean trenches. "I had no idea," he said quietly. "All these years I thought—" He trailed off, struggling. "I thought you'd given up, that you'd chosen the easy path, that you were wasting your potential." "I didn't choose the easy path," I said, voice steady despite the emotion churning inside. "I chose my path. There's a difference. I know that now." He set down the iPad. "I read your paper on benthic ecosystem restoration, the one that won that award. What was it?" "The Cousteau Society Young Researcher Award," Sarah supplied. 2019. Pretty significant honor in our field." "I didn't know," Dad repeated, and for the first time, I heard actual regret in his voice. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I tried," I said, memories flooding back. "I called you after I got my first paper published in the Journal of Marine Research. You cut me off 30 seconds in to ask when I was going to get a real job. I invited you to my graduate thesis defense. You said you had a golf tournament. I sent you the Cousteau Award announcement. You replied, 'That's nice,' and changed the subject to Marcus's promotion. Each example landed like a blow. I watched my father's face crumble a little more with each one. I stopped trying to share because you made it clear you weren't interested in what I was doing. You were only interested in what I wasn't doing. The law degree I didn't get. The corporate job I didn't want. The life you planned for me that I refused to live." "I thought I was pushing you to be better," Dad said, voice breaking. "I thought I was—" "You were pushing me to be Marcus," I interrupted. "But I'm not Marcus. I never wanted to be Marcus. And the fact that you couldn't see value in what I was actually accomplishing says more about you than it does about me." Silence fell over our table. The diner sounds, clinking dishes, murmured conversations, the hiss of the griddle, felt very far away. "I was wrong," Dad finally said, "about everything, about what success looks like, about what makes a man, about you." He looked at Sarah. "I'm grateful my son found someone who saw what I couldn't, who valued him the way I failed to." "Alex is easy to value," Sarah said, "when you actually look at who he is instead of who you want him to be." Dad nodded, accepting the rebuke. Is there any way to fix this? Any way to—" "That depends," I said. "Are you willing to actually change? Or is this just damage control because you're embarrassed about what happened at the wedding?" "Both," he admitted with brutal honesty. "I won't lie. Seeing you stand there while Marcus humiliated you, and then watching Dr. Mitchell defend you, showed me what an outside observer would see, what I look like to people who don't share my biases." He leaned forward. "But it's more than embarrassment. Saturday night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about all the times I dismissed you, all the times I compared you to Marcus, all the moments I missed because I was too busy being disappointed to be present." His voice grew quieter. "I thought about the grandson you might have someday, and whether you'd even want me in his life, whether I'd earned the right to be. And the answer right now is no, I haven't." "No," I agreed, "you haven't. So I'm asking, not assuming, asking, if you'd give me a chance to change that, to actually get to know you, to be proud of what you've accomplished, instead of resentful about what you haven't." I looked at Sarah. She gave me a slight nod. "Your choice." "I need to see real change," I said finally. "Not just words, not just one breakfast where you say the right things. Real, sustained effort to see me as I am." "Agreed," Dad said immediately. "Whatever it takes." "And you need to apologize to Marcus too," I added, surprising both of them. "To Marcus, he's the one you raised to believe his worth came from being better than me." I interrupted. "He didn't become that way in a vacuum. You taught him that love was conditional, that approval had to be earned through achievement, that family members are competitors rather than allies." I felt Sarah's hand find mine under the table, lending strength. "Marcus is successful, but he's not happy. Did you notice? He tore me down at his own wedding because somewhere deep inside he needs external validation as